Hello, everybody. Hi. Welcome to the Exercise and Athletics panel. My name's Abby. I'm one of the CHOP dietitians.
And I'm Taylor, also CHOP dietitian.
And we're going to be your moderators for this session. We have until 4:30 together. And we have some wonderful panelists that are going to first introduce themselves. Before we get into anything, just a quick disclaimer. As we discuss some athletics and exercise in HCU, please remember that the information shared today is general and may not apply to everybody. If you're considering making changes to your nutrition or exercise regimen, please make sure to talk to your personal team. All right, so that was our quick disclaimer out of the way. So we'll, without further ado, introduce our panelists, starting with Patrick.
Hi, my name's Patrick. I was diagnosed with classical HCU when I was 9, and sports has always been a big part of my life. As of today, as of past 2 years, I picked up endurance running, and I've always had like a supportive family, so sports has always come easy to me. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Brandon. My son Mason's 11, and he has cobalamin C. He was discovered through the newborn screenings. We lived in Wyoming for a very long time, and we're very fortunate that our newborn screenings go to Colorado, which has really high, top-notch newborn screenings. And that's how we knew he had cobalamin C, and now he's 11 and doing some pretty amazing things.
Hello, everyone. My name is Will. I'm a classical HCU patient, and I was lucky enough to be diagnosed at birth. I played baseball at the University of Pittsburgh, and I played pretty much every sport growing up, so I was a very active kid. But I mean, I have the best support group ever. My parents made it possible for me to be very well maintained on the diet growing up, and they are a big reason why I was able to be so successful in sports, is because they made it really easy just to not think about the diet and just kind of focus on being a kid and being active and doing all the things that I really like to do, which is just playing sports.
All right, thank you. So we're so lucky to have Brendan, Will, and Patrick here with us today. We're going to start with a question for Patrick. And I guess the structure of today is we have some pre-selected questions, but then we're going to save 10 to 15 minutes at the end for any questions from the audience. So please save your questions to the end and we'll get to them. So Patrick, we're going to start with, what inspired you to take on endurance sports like marathon running?
So yeah, I definitely over like the high school years struggled with the diet. So I think that throughout those years, I kind of got set back in sports and thought I couldn't do difficult things at times. So once I graduated college, I took upon myself to do endurance running and ultimately to try and do something difficult while being active is why I took up endurance running.
Okay, our next question is for Brandon. So Brandon, how did you navigate safety, confidence, and independence as your son became more active?
So took a lot of pre-planning. I mean, Mason has macular degeneration, so he doesn't have his center vision, which means he also has issues with depth perception. So, his safety is one of the forefront things in our mind. But really, we did a lot of pre-talking with the coaches when he was really little. We put him in every sport we could think of, just like our daughter. We just wanted him to be a normal kid. And we lucked out being in a small town in Wyoming. We knew the coaches for soccer, and so they knew what he had. We'd explain it, make sure they knew the facts of what he had going on. And, we coped and we worked to make things work out for him. And, some of the coaches even made it special because, when they get older, they get faster, and Mason wasn't quite as fast as the other kids, but they'd make sure he'd still, kick a goal, and they just made it special for him, which was great. But yeah.
Great. Building off of that a little bit, Brandon, I don't want to put you on the spot, but were there any specific tools or anything you had Mason do during his exercise? Does that make sense?
I mean, there's lots of different things out there for soccer and all the sports that have balls. You can have balls that have like a bell inside them that can make noise. That can really help out the kids. There's some balls that'll glow. Those also help too. You know, think of high contrast things. Make sure the boundary lines are a bright colored tape or something like that helps them know. And honestly, just the having a candid conversation with the coaches and the kids, saying, "Hey, you know, he can't see quite as good, so just be careful. He may run into you on accident, or you may run into him on accident. But just be aware."
Perfect. Thank you, Brandon. All right, Will. How did competing in sports, such as baseball, of course, shape your identity and mindset?
I think the first thing that I would say is it helped a lot with my confidence. Growing up, I know a lot of other HCU patients struggle with this as well, but gaining weight was always really, really hard for me. And being underweight was just part of having HCU for a while, until I would say, you know, around my junior year of high school, when I started actually really getting serious about baseball. That's when my mindset kind of changed from, you know, seeing this as kind of a barrier and something that restricts me, where, you know, oh, I can't have protein, so I can't lift and I can't gain muscle, and, you know, I can't be the best player like all the other players that I'm playing with. But then I kind of got over that, where I was like, you know what, I just go out there, I'll try, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but, you know, I might as well just lift and put in the work, go hard, and see how it goes. And, you know, thankfully I found some success with that. I was able to put on a lot of weight in high school, and that helped a lot with my body image and just confidence in general. And so I would say it shifted kind of from where I was thinking, you know, I can't be as good as other players. Like, I can't be this, I can't be that because of this thing that's holding me back, where I realized it's not. It makes it a little bit more difficult, but I can do everything that everyone else can. I can be the player that that I want to be, and like I see myself becoming, even though it might take a little bit longer, it might be a little bit more difficult, and I have to work at it a little bit harder. And so seeing some success and being able to at play in college, I mean, that kind of validated those feelings for me. And you know, on the field, I'm just one of the players, so it's not. I'm not thinking about, you know, diet or anything. It's just, you know, your abilities. So
That's awesome. Thanks, Will. And this question, so this is a question for Patrick, but I think it's one that each of you could answer in terms of, you know, balancing the medical management side of things, like diet, treatment, monitoring, things like that, with intense physical activity. So how, and you mentioned that early on diet was challenging, but you really wanted to challenge yourself with the activity. So how do you then balance that type of management with what you're trying to accomplish?
So since picking up long distance running, I definitely would say my main, like obviously with keeping like the low protein diet, my main focus has been to consume a good amount of carbs, because I'm going to need the energy on, especially like a long day of running. So on top of having a lot of carbs, though, over the past year, I've been working on implementing some foods that have less methionine, but have some more protein, but less methionine. And so far, my blood work has been looking pretty well with these foods, such as like the pea protein hot dogs, and like macadamia nuts are the two that I really like implement into my diet. Yeah.
And I think for Brandon as well, you know, for your son, if he doesn't follow diet, but, you know, other types of manage that you have to balance with his activity, you know, is there anything that he's had to do?
No, we're very fortunate we don't have to have a restricted diet. So it's really the education, making sure the coaches know if he's looking off, looking lethargic, anything like that. You let the parents know so that we can make sure he's good. And, you know, if something was going on, we'd usually catch it before a game. So
Got it. So you have like a care plan with the coaches?
Yep,
or
pretty
something
much.
Like that? Great.
So actually, I would want to touch on the low methionine, high protein food sources. And again, this is something that I know they said, but talk to your doctor. And my doctors have been very helpful throughout this whole process, trying to gain weight, put on muscle, and just be in the best physical shape I could be. But yeah, some sources that I started eating literally a year ago or so. But peanut butter, that's one. Never had it up until I was 19 years old, and then all of a sudden, my doctor said, "Yeah, peanut butter is one where it's low in methionine, high in protein, so it's a good source where you can get a little bit more protein in, and also not have all the methionine." But again, my diet's a little bit different. I have a little bit of higher protein allowance at 30. So a little bit different, but I would say lifting has helped a lot with flexibility in my diet. It's helped me actually to eat more protein. So my levels fluctuated a little bit whenever I was starting to get into lifting and I was exercising a lot, but I was staying at the same protein level. And my doctors actually advised me, as opposed to restricting my diet even more, to maybe have a little bit more protein because your body needs a little bit more energy to be able to rebuild your muscles and everything like that. And that helped me actually, and it helped lower my levels. It helped me be able to expand my diet a little bit. So I'm really trying to advocate for lifting and just being active in general. I think resistance training has helped me immensely with managing my diet, managing my levels, but also confidence and just a lot of the things that come along with being an HCU patient. People don't think that you can gain muscle or you can't gain weight or whatnot, but it's not true. You might have to work on it a little bit harder. But those protein sources have helped me a lot with being able to fuel my body, and especially with the training schedule that we had, and how I got to play in college.
Thank you all very much. And I'll put a little asterisk again about, talk with your home clinic.
Please talk to your
about
doctor.
this stuff.
It's different for everybody.
It's, it's great to explore different options, but definitely diet is very personal and very personalized. And then, additionally for both Patrick and for Will, the formula plays a big role too in the protein that they get. So how have you been able to integrate that side of things into your routines?
Yeah, that formula has been a huge part of my development physically. I would take 5 of those HCU coolers, so about, anywhere from like 75-ish grams of protein, and I bumped it up to 10 a day. And that also talking to your doctors. But they worked with me, and with how much exercise I was getting in, lifting a lot more, they decided that I needed that extra protein, and that helped me a bunch with putting on weight, of course, but also just with recovery. I was advised, actually kind of had to teach my nutritionist at school about HCU, but then once she kind of understood it, she helped me out with, when I should be drinking my coolers. So I would take 3 coolers to our locker room, and immediately after a lift, I would go in and I would immediately have my coolers just to kind of get that protein in to help, rebuild the muscle and everything. But the coolers were big. Also, talk to your doctor, but I started taking creatine whenever I was lifting a lot. But a big thing that they advised me to do is just drink a lot of water, which I've always been good about, but with HCU in general, obviously I know a lot of you probably know, but you have to drink a lot of water in general, and creatine, in addition to that, there is the risk of dehydration. So just being really good about just the formula and being on top of water drinking and all that, staying hydrated.
So yeah, I drink about 6 coolers a day, and it hasn't always been easy for me to consume the coolers. But as of recently, not recent, so it's been 6, and I would try and put it off until like later in the day. And be like 3 p.m. And then over the past like 2 months, I finally got myself to take them like earlier in the day. And I would say, for me personally, it has benefited. Like I've been benefiting from taking them earlier in the day and not putting it off. So I would say they're extremely important.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I know, so I take 10 coolers a day, and I know that's on the high end of what a lot of people take. But a little tip for that, I know you said taking it earlier in the day, just spreading it out, because if I were to drink 10 coolers at once, it would immediately all be right on the floor. You can't keep that much down. So definitely spread it out, and that's helped me a lot with being able to up my coolers and up my intake of formula while also, still having an appetite. Because I'll tell you what, if you have a couple coolers, I was actually just talking to Ruby, but they fill you up for sure. So if you have them before a meal, it's kind of difficult then sometimes to still eat enough, and if you're trying to gain weight, still get the calories in and everything. So I would say just spread it out throughout the day as much as you can, and I generally eat them or take them quick after my meals, just so that I can have a little bit more calories.
Great tips. Thank you, guys. Thanks for being put on the spot with formula questions. So I appreciate that. Our pride and joy, formula nutrition, of course. We got nothing to really add to that. So think of some questions if you have any at the end. We'll go with Brandon. I really like this question. It's a really nice question that is, what has surprised you most about Mason's athletic journey?
I'd say his recent journey into Taekwondo has actually been the most impressive. He was into soccer. It was just something to do. He's actually in Cub Scouts and got his Arrow of Light. And, that was really fun too. And the Cub Scouts could do tons of accommodations too. And they can actually do something that's similar to like an IEP if you actually want to go get your full Eagle Scout, which is awesome for people that need accommodations. But last summer, his vision specialist had a summer camp, and they did lots of cool activities. They did scavenger hunts in the grocery stores and Costco, and somehow they got introduced to the owner of a Taekwondo studio, and he loved it so much. He had a class. The dozen kids that were in the vision camp went to him every day for the week, and they loved it. He loved it. He had a board breaking session on the Saturday. If they wanted to, they could get their white belt, and Mason was all for it. And I remember that he struggled to break that board because it was a legit 1x4. I mean, it's not balsa wood, and he struggled because he didn't have his form quite right, and he had a meltdown, and he was crying, and he had to walk off the mat, but he later broke it. But he's had meltdowns for other things in life too, but he's been doing it for a full year now, and he's advanced from a white belt all the way to a low green. And his last board that he broke, he did a front side kick, and his first kick, he hit it really hard, and it was a solid thud, but he didn't have just the right technique, and he didn't hit it just right in the middle of the board, so it didn't break. So he tried a few more times. He was getting frustrated, and I could see the look on his face that a meltdown was coming. But he took a break. He actually went to the bathroom, and I don't know if he wiped tears off or what, or just gave himself a motivational speech, because I didn't follow him into the bathroom, but just let him do his thing. And when he came out, he was bound and determined. You could see that look in his face, and he did his little ki telling him to get ready to hold that board solid, and next thing, that board just snapped. And it was an awesome sight just to see how resilient they are, and just they can do anything they want. That's what life's about. It's just doing what you want.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yep.
We're just deciding what our final question should be from us, and then we'll open it to the rest of the audience for questions. This question is for everybody. We think it's really important to ask you guys, were there moments where you had to advocate for yourself within the competitive sports environment? I know you've all kind of touched a little bit on different examples, but if there's anything that you haven't talked about, any specific times where you had to specifically advocate for yourself?
I'm actually going to say no, not really, because my dad was actually always my coach in sports, so it made it really easy because he knew everything that I was going through. I mean, he's the one who orders everything. Like he goes through the whole process. It's basically, like, it's basically like he has it in some ways because like he has to kind of he has to advocate for me in that way. So no, I actually haven't had to that much. I mean, I guess I'm lucky enough to not have to with just my support from my parents. So
I guess the best example I got would be Cub Scouts. I mean, you do lots of cool activities in Scouts, and we'd have to modify them, whether it was making his Pinewood Derby car, doing some of the craft things. You know, we'd talk with the Cub Master or the den leader and just make it work for Mason. One specifically would be like when they do crossover. Typically, the Boy Scouts will build a rope bridge that the kids get across, and it's pretty fun. I remember doing it when I was in Cub Scouts, and with Mason's poor vision and not very good depth perception, he's pretty scared of heights, and so he was not cool with crossing a rope bridge. So, you know, we made it work for him. One year we just took like a 4x4 post or a 2x6 or something and just laid it on the ground, and it was like a balance beam for him, and that was perfectly fine for crossing over. So you can make anything happen.
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely have had to advocate for myself, but it wasn't always myself advocating. I mean, I touched on it earlier, but I have the best parents in the world, and they were always super involved growing up with sports teams and everything. I mean, every team that I joined pretty much had to kind of explain the whole situation. I know I don't have to tell you guys that because everyone goes through that with every new group we pretty much join. But yeah, my mom with, you know, the other moms and team snacks and things growing up, she was always there to make sure I had something that I could have if we were at a tournament for a weekend and everything. And then I would just have to explain to the other little kids like why I was eating something different. But then as I grew up and I started playing higher level sports, and especially in college, it definitely kind of fell onto just me to be an advocate for my diet and sort of my needs. I mean, at Pitt, in no way I was not a starter, so it kind of felt a little bit like I was kind of taxing our like, you know, dietitian and our ops guy who was coordinating meals and everything. But then I kind of just realized, I mean, my needs are just as valid as anybody else. So just going along with that, I worked with them directly. I talked a lot with my dietitian, and thankfully she was great about it. She really was eager to learn about it, and I was there helping her out, and she was helping me. So talking with Jack, our ops guy, working with him, he was able to make all the accommodations and everything. But yeah, really just understanding that, you got to take it in your own hands. If you want your needs to be met, you have to do that yourself. And you're not being a burden on other people. If that's what you have to do, it's what you have to do. I mean, you can't change your diet. So yeah, just making sure to explain to other people and kind of get people to understand, because in high-level athletics, you don't really see much or pretty much anything like what we have. So definitely just educating people, letting people know. And most of the time they're happy to help. So
very inspiring for all three of you. Thank you so much. All right, we are going to open it to the audience for questions. I think the easiest thing to do was if you can actually come to the front and I'll give you the mic to ask the question, unless you want me to bring the mic to you. I think we'll do that. I think I'll take it. Yes, perfect.
No, it's okay. Hello. I am the mother of 2 kids with HCU. One, my son is almost 7, and my daughter is 1. And so we have a long journey ahead of us, but I had a question about sports. So my son Everett is very into sports. He loves, all of them. And they do a lot of like playing soccer and, football and stuff at recess. And I think sometimes, playing the game can be harder for him than it is for other kids. And so I guess I was just kind of wondering if, in hindsight, you guys have any wisdom in terms of how he can, we can tell him, like, okay, if you feel like this is like becoming really hard for you or you're getting frustrated, like, what is a way that you can communicate that to your friends you're playing with in a not weird way? Or just like, if there isn't any way, then, how we can help impart to him, this is a great way to look at it, or like, words of wisdom that will maybe encourage him to, keep fighting the good fight, and, don't let it take the fun out of the game.
Yeah, I can do that. So I would say I played pretty much every sport there is growing up. Like, I did everything. There was a lot of sports that I was really not good at, and I'd struggled in. But then it's just kind of finding your niche. If whatever the sport that is, just have them try pretty much everything. I do want to ask, like, what specifically does he struggle with? Is it just like keeping up, like endurance wise, or?
So again, he was diagnosed like a year ago.
Okay.
So he had 5 years of, we had no idea, and there's nothing sort of outside the realm of normal according to pediatricians, right? But now I think in hindsight we're able to see, right, he's got coordination issues, he's got some developmental delays, and so when Liz kind of mentioned, right, like the a weird way not to say it, right? It's because he can present himself in certain ways. He's like naturally a very smart kid, but he will just say things like, "Bro, no. Like, come on, let's read the room a little bit." But he certainly. So what I've noticed is areas where he's able to practice, right? He loves practicing. I mean, you'll see the kid throw a ball at a wall 100 times, right? Because he's like, I want to do this. But you show him how to throw a pitch, for example, right? And he can't connect his brain to his arm, to his legs, to sort of do a coordinated motion. So when it's just him, he's fine with that. When he sees other kids do it and do it easily, even his little brother, which is, I guess, something I'd highlight, his 4-year-old brother, right, can do stuff, pick up stuff a lot quicker. So I don't know if that helps provide context, but I had the exact same question, right? He gets frustrated, and that I think is partly his nature as well. But yeah, he gets frustrated, and he'll respond to that as a 6-year-old may respond. And I know. So yeah. So in that, given that this is not going away, right? This is he. I think he will, improve in a lot of ways now that he's under treatment. We've noticed a lot of improvements, but it very much in this. Hey, here's your peer group, right? And your peer group keeps changing, and you walk in a new atmosphere, and you're not going to hey, everybody, throw this ball, and 9 out of 10 kids do it, and he throws it backwards, right? Or just something that's not, clearly uncoordinated. Clearly there's a disconnect. How do we help him? And sometimes I honestly, again, we're new to this, but I think the answer maybe you walk away, right? There's certain things, Everett, this is just not going to be for you, bud. So don't think necessarily always that you're going to be able to do everything in the world. I don't want to say that to him yet. This is something that I'm still figuring out. But what was really beneficial to you guys growing up, or you as a dad? And also, if there's anything that wasn't, right? If there's anything where in hindsight you noticed, hey, this, I would have done something different, or this could have been handled better, any of those lessons would be extremely valuable for at least us and probably more folks as well.
Would you want to speak on this? Because I feel like you might have a little bit.
Yeah, I'd say some of it's reading your kid, right? If, like he's saying, if that sport's not his, that's what it is. But I'd also like to say that Mason's grandmaster, Kwanjanim, he has a lot of talks with the Taekwondo kids, because it's not just all about punches and kicks and forms. We all learn things differently. Some of us are born with more challenges than the average person, which is this group. And he teaches them a lot about grit, and that you need to, if you really want it, you got to go after it, and you got to stay determined and just keep pushing. So if it's a passion, like Mason absolutely loves Taekwondo, I know he's going to get his black belt. I know it's going to be tough, because at that time he's going to have to break 3 stacked 1x4s or bigger, and he'll get to do it. But he's going to have to be tough and practice and practice. But well, life's tough, but those great things are worth the hard work that it takes to get them.
I know I keep coming back to it, but my dad is, I mean, he's just as into sports as I am. But growing up, I mean, he was like my practice partner. And so, anytime I wanted to have a catch or do pretty much anything sports-wise, he was right there. And after work, we'd go out and we have like this little field behind our house, and whatever it was, kick soccer ball, throw baseball, chip golf balls, whatever. That was kind of a space where, like, even if I wasn't good at something, I mean, who cares? It's just my dad. Like, he's not gonna judge me. So I mean, same thing with like my best friends. Like, we would go to the park and like, some of us are bad, some of us are good, whatever. But we all know that, we're not the same skill level, and that's fine. But we're just having fun and kicking around or doing whatnot, being active. So I would just say if it's something where I know it gets difficult with big teams, and like I've joined teams where I'm the bottom, and that's hard. And it's tough to navigate those, and I think it goes back to what he was saying. It's just like practice and grit and determination. If you really want to be good, then you're just gonna have to work on it. But yeah, just finding like your little group, or like just my dad was there to help me out with stuff if I wasn't good. And just having those little groups where there's not the expectation for you to really be all that great, that helps a ton with kind of combating some of that anxiety maybe that comes around not performing well or whatnot.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just have a quick question for Brandon too about that, in terms of that advocacy, or the building the grid and sort of building them up, and the accommodations you were talking about. So were you collaborating with the coaches and people for those specific, like the high contrast, or the specific things, or were you looking those up online or finding these accommodations and kind of integrating them into his routines?
So like for the soccer one, high contrast helps people with low vision. Honestly, I kind of picked that up from the information we got from the functional vision assessments that we used in his IEP, because we don't want we want high contrast materials for his school stuff. And soccer, fortunately, it was indoor soccer, and it was in the winter in Wyoming. But it was a bright yellow ball, so we didn't have to get anything specific. But I do remember the rec center reaching out to my wife and saying, "Hey, we know Mason's got low vision. Do we need to get anything particular?" And so we had a good conversation with that facility about it.
Will, you were talking about weight training. I think that's great. But how old were you when you started to push weights? Because when you're a little younger, they don't really want you to do that. They don't want 7-year-olds to do that.
Yeah.
But at what time? And then did it develop into a program that you just change your program more?
Yeah. I would say I started consistently lifting at 16. And I was pretty late in that, I would say. A lot of my friends started lifting earlier on. And I had, tried it out. I guess my first kind of experience with it was my freshman year when I was maybe 14. Again, my dad would just take me and we would kind of lift together, and he would show me how to do it. But I was really bad at it, and I was really weak. And so it was kind of just, that was tough to get over. But then once I got into varsity baseball, and we kind of had more of a training program, that helped me to be more on schedule with it, and be more consistent. And despite not throwing a bunch of weight around or having the best form or whatnot, just doing it, and doing it smart in a smart way, as not to get injured. That is what kind of helped me be consistent and like really see success in the gym. But I would say if I were to go back and do it again, I would start earlier, and get on more of a routine with it, where I can just be more familiar with the gym and lifting, and kind of develop some of those skills in the gym where it's not as much, it's like not scary to go in and like unknown, you know? But yeah, I would say I consistently started lifting when I was 16. And then it kind of grew from there. Obviously with college, it was, the training was a lot more intense and structured.
You still do it?
Yeah, I still lift about pretty much every day. And quick shout out to my girlfriend. She's here, and this is her second year actually. Really appreciate her. Speaking of support, my parents like kind of have to be here, but she doesn't. So I really appreciate that. But she's also an athlete at Pitt, and so she kind of helps me out and keeps me consistent because I feel like I got to keep up with her. But yeah, still, I'm huge advocate, and I will lift for the rest of my life because it's had that much of an impact on not only, you know, the HCU diet, and I think it helps a lot with being able to manage my levels and kind of expand my diet, be able to eat a little bit more, but also just confidence in general, which is maybe something I was lacking before when I could put on weight, and I was always just underweight. And but yeah, big advocate for lifting, absolutely.
All right, we have time for one more question. Great. What's your name? Kaden has a question.
When you worked out, did it affect your levels?
Yeah, so at first it did. It fluctuated my levels, and they actually went up at first when I started training. And that's because I was just kind of maintaining the same diet, and I wasn't fueling my body enough. So I learned that kind of actually expanding my diet, eating a little bit more, especially getting more calories in. Whenever I was in high school and I was really, really like hard trying to gain weight, I came up with like this CPP term, and it was calories per protein. So I would just try to max that out and everything. So, I mean, a lot of the low protein foods are high in calories. So I would go for, low protein pasta I would have pretty much every day. And, a lot of carbs, like they had mentioned, potatoes and all that are great. But it's just making sure you're keeping up with eating enough while you're lifting and not being afraid of going, I don't want to say go crazy and eat whatever. But for me, it actually helped to expand my diet a little bit because the way that my doctors kind of explained it to me was my body was kind of breaking down my own like tissue and muscle and using that as fuel. And so that's kind of what was raising my levels. But when you lift, and especially with resistance training, and Dr. McLean has actually touched on this a little bit and kind of validated it. And again, talk to your doctor. But it uses the protein in a way to rebuild the muscles that it actually lowers your levels because it's being used up and not sitting in your system where it's not being processed. I hope that answered your question.
All right, we're actually on time. So thank you everyone for joining this session. Thank you so much, of course, to our panelists.